Getting quoted in the media is life-changing. It puts you out there as an expert, you're seen, and your voice is heard. But then, as you think about this is what you want. But why do we stop ourselves from doing this? Because we realize that when we put ourselves out there, we're going to be judged, we're going to be seen on a bigger level, we're going to be doubted, sometimes by others, but oftentimes by ourselves. Why do we do this? Why do we stop ourselves when we know that doing this is going to be life-changing? So I'm going to walk you through 3 unexpected ways that you can overcome this. And I'm also going to tell you a personal story about how I overcame my fear and how when I overcame it, I got my first story published as a journalist. So stay tuned. A lot of the problem around this is we watch all these big creators, but we forget where they start. And we have to go through what is called the cringe phase, was what I call it. And you've got to go through the cringe phase in order to reach the credibility phase. And if you look at big creators, and we all do on YouTube, especially Ali Abdaal, Marie Forleo, Mel Robbins, they all started where you and I are now. We're going through this phase in order to build up our expertise, in order to build up our confidence so we can get to the credible phase. For some, it takes slightly longer than others. Some people, it happens very fast, but we all have to take our own journey through this cringe phase. So, the best people that you see quoted in the media right now also went through this cringe phase. They pitched themselves into media outlets as experts, didn't hear anything back. They kept going, they kept persevering, they showed up again. For now, I want to help you go through your cringe phase so you can actually get to the point where you feel comfortable and confident to pitch yourself out there and just forget about who's judging you, forget about what people will think, and you're just going to go for it. So if you have been waiting until you're ready to do this, well, I say you're ready now. You are ready to start owning your story and sending your story out to the media. And look, we all have to show up shaky. We all have to show up looking like we know what we're doing, but deep down, we're still learning. But once you have that eagerness to learn and grow, you're already steps ahead of those that are still sitting on the sidelines, still dreaming about how publicity can change their business and change their life. You've got to start, like all these other big creators we're all looking at, they all started, but the key is they figured out how to keep going. So, if you were thinking that my top 3 tips were going to be about staying consistent, having courage, just bite the bullet and put yourself out there, well, then you're sadly wrong. I'm going to give you practical tips, things that are actually going to move the needle. The very first thing you need to do is immerse yourself in the world of the media. So, I'm going to ask you, when was the last time you read a publication in your niche? What are the top 3 to 5 publications in your niche? When was the last time you read an article by a blogger in your niche? When was the last time you looked at a national newspaper? You need to start saying yes to these. Now, I don't need you to say yes to doing this every day, but you need to start to immerse yourself in the world of the media because this is what will give you the confidence when you go to pitch. If you're pitching a journalist and you haven't read their publication, you don't really know what the latest trends are in your niche, you need that expertise, that background knowledge, that immersion to come through in your pitch email. And a journalist will sense this because you will naturally be referencing it in your conversations with them. And they'll know that you're immersed and that you know what's making the news and what's making things tick in your niche. So my first tip, and it's probably the most important thing in this video, is to immerse yourself in the world of the media that is relatable, that's the word, relatable to your niche. Then I want you to record what you find that is relevant to you right now. So, record journalists that are writing in your niche. What areas of interest do they write on? And start to form a picture of what is making the headlines. And you need journalists' names, you need what they write, the publications, and make a list of somewhere between 8 to 15 things that you come across that you can now use as part of your story when you go to pitch out journalists. This is how you're going to make your story relatable to the journalist, because this is what's making the news now. So, your first part is to immerse yourself. And then, as you immerse yourself, and trust me when I say this, when you immerse yourself in the publications that are of relevance to your niche, you will start to see where you can become relevant. And oftentimes, people get this backwards. They put their press release together, they put their pitch together, they get all the photos, they get everything perfect. And then they go to pitch out and they realize that they're off the mark. The journalist has covered this story. This area is no longer relevant. What you need to figure out first through immersion is how you can make yourself relatable. So, number one is immersion. Number two is how you make yourself relatable. And now we're going to move on to number three. Number three, look at what you already have. Oftentimes, when people go to pitch out to the media, they are desperate to create something new. They are desperate to start getting into a panic about, okay, I need this to be perfect. I need this to be perfect. What I really want you to do is actually take the stress out of this, because that's what stops a lot of people from getting started. I want you to go and do an inventory of what content you've already written, what photos you have, what videos you have, what social media posts have taken off for you in the past, and do an inventory of everything that you've done in the last 3 to 4 months. And then between the immersion, how you're going to be relatable to the media, and now by looking at what you have, you can now see, okay, I do have some content here that I can repurpose and use for a press release or a pitch out to the media. I don't need to create anything new. Or also, maybe I do need to create something new because I'm way off the mark, because I'm actually not in touch with what's actually happening in my niche right now. So, by doing the first two steps and then looking at your content in this same phase, it will show you how you can go from there and what you actually need to do now, whether you have stuff that you can use. And I bet you do. You have something that you can start with right now. And if you don't, then you need to gather your team together. You need to figure out whether you need some help. And then, with the background knowledge that you have and that you will continue to build, you'll start to get more confidence in your pitch, because you're pitching from a place of knowledge. You're not just pitching out a press release and hoping for the best. You're pitching knowing how you can be relatable to the news cycle. And once you start doing your publicity this way, you will start to see results, and you'll start to see you having conversations with journalists, the same journalists that would have ignored you in the past. So, right now, you could say, I'm going through my YouTube cringe phase. I have 27 subscribers, and I love each and every one of you, and I hope you're finding this content amazing. But I am finding this really hard. And the one thing that's really hard about trying to grow on YouTube is you're doing it in front of other people who are watching you. And they're watching you and they're looking at your subscriber count, and mine is growing very, very slow, but it's growing. Um, but when I started off as a journalist in my early 20s, I didn't have that pressure. And I walked past a bakery for almost a week, over and back every day. And I was afraid to go in. And I needed to get a story. I needed to prove to this course that I really wanted a place on, this journalism course. I needed to prove to them that I could actually get a story printed. That was part of the application process. And this bakery opened in my local town. And I thought, this could be my story. It was run by two women. And as I say, I walked past it every day, once a day, for a week before I had the courage to walk in. I'd done all the research, spent loads of time researching, and this was before we had online media. And then one day I just thought, you know what? What is the worst that they can say to me other than to tell me to sling my hook, get out of here? So I walked in. I told them exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to get behind the scenes of why they started this business, how it's going, how they're finding it as women in business, female entrepreneurs. And they said, okay, look, come back when we're not so busy. I actually arrived at a time when they were insanely busy. And I said, look, I'll come back. And after closing, they said, okay, look, let's come and have a chat. And they took a chance on me based on my enthusiasm and just ability to be cringe. And I was really, really cringe. And they said, okay, look, we'll tell you our story and let's see if you can get it into one of the big regional newspapers in the area. And I said, okay, I'll do my best. So I got the interview and I knew what they were telling me. There was a story there, even though I was green to the grass as to what made a story. I just knew, look, there's something here. So after they told me the story, I wrote it up and I dropped it in to the newspaper. And when I mean dropped, I printed it out and I put it in an envelope and I walked into the newspaper's reception and said, this is a story I've written about a new business in my local town. And I'm hoping that you might be interested in publishing it because I want to be a journalist, but I need to get a story published in order to be in with a chance to get into this college course. And luckily for me, the editor of this particular newspaper worked on this college course. He was one of the main guys involved in the course. So when he got this story, he phoned me back in the day when people used to phone each other. And he said, yes, there is something in this story that we would like to do, but I am telling you now that there will need to be a lot of changes in this content. Are you happy for me to change it? And I said, of course, I'm happy for you to change it. I'm here to learn how to write as a journalist. So you can imagine how happy I was when this story appeared. And you can imagine how happy the two women were in the bakery when we got a fabulous, almost full page on page 3 of the newspaper. I mean, they were beside themselves with joy. And I tell you this story because I was super cringe. I didn't really know what I was doing. All I knew was I wanted to be a journalist really badly. And I was going to do whatever it took to get there. And this business, the bakery business, went on to realize the power of the media. And we did a good bit of work together after this. While I went on to do my college course and graduated, I still helped them with their press releases and gave them ideas around photos. And they went from being featured in a regional newspaper to being on national television. And it just shows you the power of trusting that if you share your story and if you share it often enough and if you keep going out there and you keep repeating your story and learning from what works and what doesn't, things will start to grow and you will start to see the results of your efforts. And like I say, I'm in my cringe phase now in YouTube and I know I have to go through this. But I've already been through a cringe phase when I started in journalism all those many years ago. And I know that I have to stick with it. So I'm urging you that if you are on the sidelines and you really want to get publicity for your business, I urge you to start. If you follow my 3 tips that I gave earlier around immersion, being relatable, and looking at the content that you already have to see if you can use it so it takes the stress out of starting, then you will feel so much more confident when you put your message out there because you'll have the knowledge of what's already making the news in your niche. And yes, things like being consistent and having courage and not caring what other people think, that is important too. But I find that when you come to this from a place of knowledge, your mindset is automatically shifted because you're like, I know why my story is relatable. And you will be showing this to the journalist when you pitch them. So I really, really hope you have found this video useful. Please like and subscribe to my channel because it would really help me get through my cringe phase and get this information out to more people. As I say, I have 15 years experience in journalism. I now work in PR and I help people get featured in the media and help them to grow their business. So please comment below with your difficulties in relation to doing this. How did you get started? I would absolutely love to know. And if you're interested in figuring out how to best pitch the media, then you need to click on this video next. And if you would like to figure out how AI is influencing what people see in their search, then you really need to check out this video because in future videos, I'm going to be diving further into AI. And just as a slight side note, before I say bye, getting featured in the media is how AI decides whether you show up on search or not. So if you are not being featured in the media, AI is not going to be able to find you. That's it in a nutshell. It's more, all of it is detailed in this video. So please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye.